Hey, Shalom, guys. Welcome to another episode of Who is the Suffering Servant? Today, we're going to be looking at Isaiah chapter 53, verse 5, and this is what it says. But he was pierced for our offenses. He was crushed for our wrongdoings. The punishment of our well-being was laid upon him, and all the wounds that were healed. How powerful is that? So here, Jewish commentaries, which present the suffering servant as the nation of Israel, explain that the people of Israel suffered wounding and crushing for the transgressions and iniquities of the nations. The kings of the nations declared, quote, Israel suffered on our behalf. Now, other interpretations, however, understand the suffering servant as the Messiah pierced for the transgressions of Israel and crushed for the iniquities of the people. This older, more authentic interpretation of the passage survives in a few midrashic scraps. Here, for example, Ruth Rabbah, Midrash Rabbah, quotes Isaiah 5:6 as a reference to the sufferings of the Messiah. Here, this is what it says. Ruth chapter 2, verse 14 refers to the King Messiah. Quote, and at mealtime, Boaz said to her, come here and eat some bread and dip your morsel in the wine or vinegar. Come here means draw near to the kingdom and eat some bread, refers to the bread of the kingdom, and dip your morsel in the wine or vinegar refers to his sufferings, as it is said in Isaiah 53, 5. But he was pierced through our transgressions. And guys, go ahead, look that up. That's from Ruth Rabbah, Midrash Rabbah 5:6. Now, another passage from the Midrash Rabbah, which is no longer extant, explains that the King Messiah both rejected and was rejected by his wicked generation. Therefore, he seeks mercy and pardon for Israel by undergoing self-mortification. And this is what it says. Then Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, Genesis 24:67. This is the King Messiah, who belonged to the generation of the wicked, but rejected them and chose the Holy One and his holy name to serve him with all his heart, and applied himself to seek for mercy for Israel and to fast and humble himself on their behalf. As it is said, he was pierced through our transgressions. And when all Israel is sinful, the Messiah seeks for mercy upon them, as it is written, quote, by his scourging we are healed, in Isaiah 53:12. He himself bore the sin of many and interceded for our transgressions. Now, that is Genesis or Bereshit Rabbah of Rabbi Moshe Hadarshan. Now, Now, don't look for the passage in today's editions of the Midrash Rabbah. Thanks to the ongoing argument with Christianity for control of Isaiah 53, the passage has disappeared, apparently edited out of the existing copies. And for example, as you guys can see right here, let me pull this down. Right here, this is the entire Midrash Rabbah. It is not existent during this time. However, it does appear, as we will soon see. So according to a tradition reported by Rabbi Huna, Isaiah 53:5 can be used as a proof text to prove that a portion of the punishment due to Israel for her sins fell upon the Messiah. So here, Rabbi Huna, on the authority of Rabbi Akka, said, the chastisements are divided into three parts. One for David and the fathers, one for our own generation, and one for the King Messiah. As it is said in Isaiah 53:5, he was pierced through our transgressions. Now look up Yachot Samani 2:6-20 for that. Now, in all these interpretations, Messiah suffers punishment on behalf of Israel. He suffers vicariously for Israel's sins. Quote, the meaning of which is that since the Messiah bears our iniquities, which produce the effect of his being bruised, it follows that whose will not admit that the Messiah thus suffers in our iniquities, must endure and suffer for them himself, right? And this comes from Rabbi Elia de Vidas concerning that the Messiah, when he comes, he will endure and he will suffer for all the iniquities on himself, not just this nation of Israel ideology. The Hebrew words translated as chastising for our well-being are musar shalom minu, which can be literally rendered discipline for our peace. Such discipline comes from the hand of the Lord, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. As in Proverbs 3:11, my son, do not reject the discipline or the musar of the Lord, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And in Proverbs 3:24, he who withholds his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines, musar, him diligently. In the case of the suffering servant, however, the Lord does not discipline him for his own misdeeds. Instead, he disciplines for the misdeeds of the people. He takes the punishment that was due the nation and thereby brings shalom to the people. The word shalom can also mean whole. Now, accordingly, some rabbis render the verse to mean the chastising of the whole of us fell upon him, right? So when the Messiah comes, he will also take on this burden, just as Isaac was going to take on the burden, just as Moses was going to take on the burden, just as Ezekiel was going to take on the burden. We see this idea of someone can suffer for the sins, either for another person or an entire nation. So we have to ask ourselves, how much more can the Messiah himself, the one who was anointed by God, by Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, take on the pain and the chastisements for the entire world, both before and after his deeds? Now, at the time of his suffering, our master endured beating, flogging, and crucifixion. The Roman scourging tore his flesh and left welts on his body. The marks left by the crucifixion are never healed, and even the resurrected Yeshua still bears those wounds in his body. The Apostle Peter explains Isaiah 53:5 in light of the crucifixion. Quote, he himself bore our sins in his body on the cross so that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. For by his wounds you were healed. And Peter says this in his letter in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 24. Now here the Ramban, or Nachmanides, explains that healing often appears in the prophets as a metaphor for redemption. He says, quote, the stripes by which the Messiah is vexed and distressed will heal us. God will pardon us for his righteousness, and we shall be healed both from our own transgressions and from the iniquities of our fathers. Now, the NSAB, the New American Standard Bible, says this, quote, by his scourging we are healed. But many other English versions rendered it as, quote, by his stripes we are healed. The word translated as scourging or stripes is chabura. IB Christman says chabura means an incision or stilt. Our rabbis explain it is signifying a blow which causes blood to colligate beneath the skin, in accordance with their saying in B Shabbat 1070b, which is from the Talmud. That's the tractate. You can go look it up. What is kabara, which never disappears? It is a bruise where the blood, though it does not break out through the skin, nevertheless colligates beneath it. The meaning will be that by the wheels breaking out in his flesh in consequence of his anxiety for us, God will have mercy upon him by sparing him for the sake of his sufferings endured on our account, or to heal us. Alternatively, kabara could be rendered as kavara, which means fellowship and union. This is kind of how like the Midrash really works. It looks at changing some of the letters here and there. So on that reading, IBN Christman suggests translating Isaiah 53:5 to say, and by union with him, we are healed. He explains, although the Messiah is in the utmost distress from pain and sickness, yet by union and nearness to him, we are healed from all the diseases to which our afflictions give rise. Paul here alludes to this alternative reading of the Hebrew when he tells the Philippians that he has counted all things a loss so that he might, quote, know him in the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being conformed to his death. Philippians 3:10. In Hebrew, the term fellowship of his sufferings points to Isaiah 53:5 in both readings of the word chubara. And that's exactly how the Messiah will suffer for us, the discipline that comes upon it. Interestingly, when we go to the book of Hebrews, it talks about that when a father disciplines a son, is out of love. And out of this discipline comes righteousness. So just as Messiah will bear our sins and we will become righteous just like Messiah, he will also do the same for us in the world to come when he returns. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson and this teaching. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Shalom.